Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today to learn about the 10-year Trail Shared Stewardship Challenge from the U.S. Forest Service. My name is Brenda Yankoviak. I'm the National Trail Program Lead, and I want to make sure we introduce the other presenters, and then we'll get into our actual presentation.
Hey everyone, my name is Mackenzie Hellmandaller. I'm hailing from Northern Arizona. I'm a trail specialist working with Brenda in the Washington Office Trails Program.
Hi there, my name is Jess May. I'm a trail specialist for the Flathead National Forest in Northwest Montana, and I am the Region 1 Trails Advisory Group representative.
Hi everybody, I'm Garrett Villanueva. I'm the Region 5 Trails and Travel Management Program Leader.
All right, thanks everybody. So again, today we're going to be talking about the 10-year Trail Challenge, and the Chief Vicki Christensen announced this last year in February of 2020, the launch of the challenge. We've since been working behind the scenes to develop a bunch of tools and resources for implementation, including the technical guidebook for implementation of the challenge. So today what we're going to talk about is the challenge, next slide please, is the Trail Challenge structure and the outcomes, what we're looking for from the challenge, how we're tracking our progress and accomplishments going forward, some of the tools that are available, how this integrates with the Great American Outdoors Act, which is a big priority for our trail program right now, and then some next steps. So over to you, Garrett.
Thanks, Brenda. All right, so first I wanted to share the structure of our agency. It starts at the top with the Department of Agriculture. There are several federal agencies that fit under the Department of Agriculture, the U.S. Forest Service being one of them. Next is our national office, or our Washington office, which we often refer to as our WO, located in Washington, D.C. Then we have regional offices, or ROs, located across the country. And then below that we have forest supervisor offices, which oversee forests, grasslands, or areas. And then within those areas are ranger districts. And with each one of those levels of our agency, we have line officers or decision makers that are the ones that are charged with determining actions, which actions will go forward, and ensuring compliance with applicable laws. So at the district ranger level, we have line officers at a district, and then underneath those or above those, excuse me, are our forest supervisors that oversee. There is some lines of authority that are only granted to forest supervisors and not district rangers for local line officer decisions. And generally speaking, this is where you want to start as a partner, is working with your district rangers. Oftentimes, you know, if you were to go straight to the regional forester, for example, they would tell you to go back to the district and check in with them to start the coordination. And generally speaking, the regional forester and the Washington office are here to support the efforts of those local line officers. And as I mentioned, the line officers are responsible for ensuring that we're in compliance with laws and regulations when decisions affecting national forest lands are made. And those NEPA would come into play, which is kind of in the middle of your screen here, the National Environmental Policy Act. When actions are proposed for changes on the ground, we have to complete some level of NEPA. And in NEPA, that's where we have to demonstrate that we're in compliance with laws such as the Heritage Protection Act, the Endangered Species Act, the Clean Water Act, and others as well. This isn't a comprehensive list, it's just a short list to give you some examples. So when we think about partnerships and how to engage with partners with the Forest Service and vice versa, if we understand the laws that we have to comply with, it helps all of us to be on the same page moving forward. So as I mentioned, there's regions across the nation. We have 9 different regions in the Forest Service, Region 10 being Alaska, and you'll notice there is not a Region 7. Region 7 has been combined into Region 8 and Region 9. There's over 154 national forests and 20 grasslands, 600 ranger districts, and 159,000 miles of National Forest System trails. Of those trails, approximately 60,000 miles are motorized, and approximately 98,000 miles of those trails are non-motorized. And of those non-motorized, 32,000 miles are in the wilderness or wilderness trails. On our trail system, we do have a large amount of deferred maintenance accrued. Approximately $313 million is our estimate of deferred maintenance at this time. And of those trails that the Forest Service manages, approximately 31% are maintained to standard or meeting standard. So there's a lot of opportunity on national forest lands to participate in partnership land stewardship activities on our trail system to take care of it. In many areas, our trail system does continue to grow in response to community needs. We are experiencing, we are going to see deferred maintenance reduce as a result of the Great American Outdoors Act, which is exciting. So on the ground, we're going to see trail conditions improved. However, I do want to clarify that as we look more closely at our trail system, we don't necessarily expect our deferred maintenance numbers to go down dramatically. In some cases, they could actually go up. And the reason for that is because as we take a closer look at our trail system to put more effort into those trail systems, I think we're probably going to find some new deferred maintenance that is not updated and reported in our database yet. So we anticipate some of those things to become more refined and see improved data as a result of the Great American Outdoors Act as we implement those projects over the next 5 or 6 years. While we are seeing the trail system grow, we also are seeing a steady decrease in the number of Forest Service employees dedicated to trail management activities. That's for a variety of reasons, but we have been declining in some of our trail staff over approximately the last 3 decades. And we've been shifting over time more to a partnership model for taking care of our trail system. And this trail strategy and this trail challenge lead a way for us to work together to become more efficient and shift the way we've done business in the past to become more successful at establishing and maintaining a sustainable trail system. As I mentioned, trail program managers are partnering now, and even more so than we have in the past, with nonprofit partners, with conservation corps and others across the nation to carry out our trail maintenance activities. And through this challenge, we anticipate that one of the goals, or we anticipate that one of the results will become that an accelerated pace in which we're able to take care of our trail system and address community needs, and potentially even create more new trails and connections. So why do we need the challenge? We're seeing how important trails are to our communities and public. They provide a refuge and a place for recharge and connection with nature for our public. They are also proving to be a really strong economic driver. The outdoor recreation economy is large, and we're recognizing that it's not only large, but it's growing. We're also seeing benefits across multiple areas of our economy, including reduced healthcare costs and increased productivity of communities that have good access to natural spaces. We do have a lot of challenges and stressors in the system right now that are causing us to be kind of trapped in a cycle of not being able to keep up with the trail maintenance requirements and trail planning needs of that currently exist. The trail challenge helps us to understand a way we can work together to not necessarily add more people to the Forest Service side of that equation, because we don't see that changing in the near future, but a way for us to work together and work more effectively together to accomplish sustainable trail systems. We're also experiencing missed opportunities with our partners and even with funding opportunities, because we are stuck in a reactive mode. So this strategy and the Trail Challenge helps to map a course for us to get out of that situation and kind of get in front of the problem and get into a positive track of making progress towards improving our trails. Without making those improvements, communities aren't seeing the benefits of being adjacent to those public lands for outdoor recreation and for personal prosperity. Partners are eager to engage with us, but oftentimes it's not clear how to go about engaging with a local unit in order to provide for trail maintenance or trail planning or other opportunities. So there's a couple of reasons why we've developed the 10-year Trail Challenge, and it's been an outgrowth of the Trail Stewardship Act passed by Congress in 2016. And the first document that came out from the Forest Service was the National Strategy for Sustainable Trail Systems. And that's where this symbol came from. The shared stewardship graphic came from that. And you can see the Forest Service is here on the outside, along with communities, partners, tribes, other agencies, industries, and others that are out there that want to participate in land stewardship activities. The national strategy identifies 26 different elements, and the 10-year Trail Stewardship Challenge identifies 10 of those elements that are most essential to complete first in order for us to move out efficiently and be successful together. And those 10 really focus on increasing capacity and sustainable trails. So some of those key components are to achieve sustainable trails. We are working on sustainable assessment templates. We'll talk more about those in a minute. Promote cross-program integration. So integration across, for example, it could be forest health projects that include trail planning projects together in one planning process. Instead of breaking those out separately, we kind of gain an economy of scale by working together, and by setting up trail plans and having communities organized, the Forest Service will be in a much better place in order to take advantage of those opportunities as they arise. Meeting trail data standards, supporting outdoor recreation economy, increasing outreach and user ethics, expanded use of service and job corps such as conservation corps, and to invite shared partnership leadership. Okay, with that, I'd like to pass it on to Brenda.
All right, thanks, Garrett. So great. So as Garrett had shown the earlier slide about kind of being trapped in this cycle of not being able to keep up with our work, this is another way to kind of think about current condition. If you think of each one of these arrows as representing either a partner organization or a district recreation or trails program, there is a lot of really good work going on out there, but it's oftentimes going kind of different directions, right? And so in each one of these arrows kind of represents a local set of partners and staff that are struggling with their own issues and trying to come up with their own solutions. So there's a lot of gaps in knowledge and the training necessary, and just shared resources and leveraging some resources as well. Next slide, please. So what we're going for here with the 10-year Trail Challenge is over this 10-year period, we're really looking at a lot of benefits to the trail program and benefits to the public as a result of being more efficient, being aligned around a common focus. And, we're going to be working hand in hand with our partners and agency staff and volunteers on really getting these trails well maintained, really with that focus of sustainability. Again, across those three spheres of sustainability. Are the trails socially valued and relevant? Are they meeting the needs of the community? Are they environmentally sound? And are they economically viable, right? And so really we're looking for this alignment and focusing on those actions that will make the most difference in really enabling us to better manage our trails on the ground and really deliver the maximum benefits to the public. So these green arrows in this diagram represent the additional capacity that comes from finding efficiencies, from better skill, more skilled workforce, both agency and partner and volunteer, so that the work that we're doing, every bit of effort that we're putting in, we're really maximizing that to get the results that we want. Next slide, please. So the Trail Challenge is organized into 3 main phases, and the concept, it's built on a collective impact model. And the concept is really to start in kind of a learning mode, right? And then to ramp up as we go. And so this first phase, the launch and learn phase, will be about the first 3-year period. And this is where we're developing tools and resources. We're developing toolboxes with best practices. We're trying to identify what are those training needs and starting to develop those trainings to really improve the skill set of our workforce out there. There is a lot of interest in developing a partner coalition to work right alongside us. So we're really excited that our partners are interested in that, and there'll be more to come on that as the months go on. And really, the next phase is where more elements will be required, and it's looking at assessing our workforce capacity. That's the benefits of working at home, as my dog is barking. And really assessing what's the sustainability of our trail system, what is the capacity of our total workforce, agency staff, partners, volunteers, and others. And we'll identify those gaps in sustainability and in our workforce, and really be able to start focusing on how to fill those gaps together as a trail community. So we're really looking at some concrete actions as well to promote some cross-program integration within the Forest Service as well, working across those program areas. So by the end of 10 years, what we're looking for is really, we will have, the trail program will be professionalized, we will have institutional knowledge, we'll have a high level of skills amongst the agency staff, partners, and volunteers, again, so that the work that we're doing is at a very high quality level. And we're really looking at closing those gaps. And of course, over time, there's not just one trail system that is sustainable, right? So over time, we're going to be learning and figuring out ways to better adapt and meet the changing needs of society as we go. Next slide, please. So as I talked about, the overall structure of the challenge is those 3 main phases where we're ramping up our efforts over the 10-year period. The challenge itself is comprised of 10 different elements. And you'll see here on the slide that we kind of categorize them as national-led, or there's a handful of unit-led elements, and then the partner elements. So those partner-led elements are what I'm referring to with the partner coalition that will be standing up soon to be working with us on all aspects of trail program work in terms of data collection, trail training, having a common website for all sorts of trail information. And I want to be clear, though, that even though you say national and unit and partner-led, we're all working together at all levels of the agency and internal and external on all the aspects of the challenge. It's just what this is really referring to is it will be at the unit level that we will be evaluating, a trail by trail basis, what's the sustainability of that given trail, and looking at the district level, what is the workforce capacity, and then building that up kind of more at the forest level, and then for each region. Next slide, please. So we're not just kind of doing stuff through the challenge. I mean, we are doing stuff, but we want to make sure that we're doing the right stuff, right? And then we're really focusing on those actions that will make a difference on the ground. And so we will be tracking our progress. So each of these elements has an associated outcome or kind of a desired future that we're looking at. And then each of those outcomes also has a metric or more associated with it, so we can be tracking our progress in meeting the outcome and the purpose of the overall purpose of the element. So we are, for the first time this spring, we'll be releasing a field staff survey so that we can really get an idea of what are people experiencing at the ground level. So this is focused on the field staff. We are looking this fall at doing a survey for our partners as well, but looking at, are you getting the training that you need in order to do your job effectively? Do you feel like you have the skills needed in your position? And that could be either the technical trail skills or how to engage partners or volunteers, or the whole range of what does it take to be a trail program manager or working on a trail in the field. And, are there clear priorities? Is there clear communication? Do you feel like the Washington office and the regional office, that those are the upper level of the agency, really understand what you're dealing with and what your issues and concerns are and what opportunities are that are out there? So we're really excited about that survey. And then again, this fall, when we have the survey that will go out to partners, it'll be similarly, how are they experiencing their work with the Forest Service in a shared stewardship framework. And then we will also have, which Mackenzie will talk about in a minute, we'll have a dashboard that'll be online that'll be showing our accomplishments. And we'll also be issuing a report annually to show the progress we're making on the challenge. And before I turn it back over, I want to make the point that, the whole point of this challenge is to be useful, to make a difference on the ground. And so we'll be constantly evaluating, are these the right metrics to be measuring the outcomes? Are these the right outcomes to be meeting the intent of the element? And maybe even we need to question, is this the right element that really gets us to what we need to change and to be tracking over time and focusing on? So I just want to make that point that we are continuously learning and wanting to make adjustments to really make this the most useful that we can.
Thanks, Brenda. That was great. So as Brenda was talking through some of the nuts and bolts of what the elements are and the metrics or outcomes and metrics associated with what units will be, mostly units will be doing during the challenge, I wanted to talk a little bit about what other supporting efforts. So how are we supporting this process and not just doing the work on the ground? Because there's a lot going on behind the scenes. So while units are working really hard, the national trail teams, including the National Trail Board, made up of mostly regional trail program leads in the Washington office also, and the National Scenic and Historic Trail Administrators Group, the Trails Advisory Group made up of field-going trail employees, and then the Trails Technical Team will be working on the variety of items on the screen. We've stood up an online trail toolbox that will be linked off of the 10-year challenge web page. These tools that are in the toolbox really focus on completing the elements more efficiently, increasing capacity, providing better support, and removing those roadblocks. These are great tools in the toolbox. We're obviously hosting online discussion sessions like today, developing and delivering training based on core competencies that are shared across other program areas and also with our national trail partner organizations. And these trainings include training, just like as Brenda mentioned, about trail skills, like the technical trail skills, but also that the volunteer management, reporting, and data collection training that is also necessary for running a great trail program. Another supporting effort we're focusing on in the next few months and ramping up in the next few years is improving our data and reporting systems. Right now, we have our infrastructure database, or as we call it internally, it's the infra database, really looking at improving and modernizing that data system and the reporting mechanisms for that data system. And then through the trail challenge, where we're looking at assessing our workforce capacity and our trail conditions. And as Brenda mentioned, that workforce capacity, meaning not only Forest Service employees, but partners, volunteers, and communities. Where is our workforce coming from that's caring for these great trails that we manage? And through the trail challenge, looking at identifying gaps and taking action to fill those gaps between sustainable trails and also our workforce. And then that partnership coalition. You can actually Google or search for online the Trails Move People Coalition. That's the name that our national partners are using to gain momentum and organize themselves. The next slide, please. So here's another great resource that's online, and that's the Trail Challenge Toolbox. This is a resource available off of our Trail Challenge website, and it's available to partners, employees, volunteers, and communities. And each element has a separate toolbox in addition to a communication, collaboration, and success stories toolbox. So each of the individual element toolboxes will have expanded information than what's available currently in the guidebook. So a description of the element, a summary of the metrics, that Brenda talked through, and then more information and supporting resources and links. We'll also have a frequently asked questions section where we can ask or answer more questions as they come in, and as we answer those questions and collect more information about what's working and what needs to be refined, we can make those improvements in the next phases of the Trail Challenge. Next slide. And yet an additional kind of cool thing, I think, is the Trail Challenge dashboard. This is just a mock-up right now of the first iteration of our dashboard. You'll notice on the screen that the metrics on screen are outdated. For example, the miles of trail are a little bit more now or different. But we wanted to give you a sense of what the dashboard will look like using data visualization techniques. So each of the elements of the Trail Challenge will be displayed on the dashboard. So our progress will be displayed. And the reporting is at the unit level. So every forest or grassland administrative unit will have some information about how they're doing on each of the elements of the Trail Challenge. And then that data will be aggregated to the regional level. So looking at how each of our 9 Forest Service regions are doing. For example, if the number of sustainable trail miles is collected at the district or the forest, then that total is aggregated at the region and then at the national level. So we can see across the nation how many sustainable trail miles we have in comparison to our general, how big the actual system is. So, and this dashboard, I didn't mention it before, the dashboard will be viewable by the public. So volunteers, partners, communities can look at the dashboard. At this time, Forest Service employees will be the folks entering the data into the dashboard. So that leads me to the next slide about talking about reporting. So right now, reporting will be done at the district and forest levels of forests and grasslands. So that, and then there are also, so using a Survey 123 application and a web app, we'll have reporting at the district level, which feeds into the forest level, and then the regional and national levels. So there are 4 new metrics that will be that Forest Service units will be asked to accomplish or report on into the Survey 123 app. So out of the 19 metrics that we're counting, there are only 4 additional metrics that will require direct entry into the Survey 123 app from districts and forests. You might ask where the remaining information is coming from. So 4 is being entered by forests and districts. Additional metrics are being reported on by units, or excuse me, by the regional trail program leads. There's also a designated National Trail Challenge data steward who will be collecting information. And by collecting information, I mean gathering information and reports from existing databases like the infra module, trails module, volunteer and services databases, and the Nature Watch interpretation and conservation education database, otherwise known as the NICE database. We'll also be using information from the National Visitor Use Monitoring database. So quite a few, we're utilizing quite a few data sources agency-wide to tell the story about how, tell the trail story about how we're doing in to meet the goals of the challenge and increasing capacity and on-the-ground change in trails, sustainable trails. And with that, I will pass it to Jess to talk about what units will be doing this process. Thanks.
Thanks, Mackenzie. So what are the units doing throughout the Trail Challenge? We've talked a lot about all of the support work that the trail teams are doing for phase 1, but there's also work that the units are going to be doing. In phase 1, they will be acting on the required unit element D, meet trail data standards. So that means they're going to get all of their reporting up to management level in the EDW. But at the same time, they're going to be engaging with partners and communities as part of the Great American Outdoors Act project proposal development process, which requires us to prioritize projects that support locally desirable trail systems. And this GAOA task aligns well with the community and partner involvement elements of element C, achieve sustainable trail systems, as well as several of the other Trail Challenge elements. So that's work that the units will be doing during phase 1. And then in phases 2 and 3, units will be implementing their trail stewardship plans and begin actually achieving sustainable trails and trail workforces. Slide. So how do units get started? First, they need to select elements that support their priorities by communicating them to regional trail leads by November 15th of every year. In phase 1, only the trail advisory group and data elements are required. But as mentioned in the previous slide, there's a strong alignment between work we are already doing, like the Great American Outdoors Act work, and several of the other Trail Challenge elements. So those could be selected to be worked on as well. Slide. You might wonder, how do we integrate the 10-year Trail Challenge with the Great American Outdoors Act? So let's talk about that a little bit. How can we use the Trail Challenge to maximize the benefits of GAOA to communities and the agency through strategic investments and partner and volunteer engagement? We think several of the elements align themselves well to leveraging those Great American Outdoor Act funds. Those elements are specifically element C, achieve sustainable trail systems. This element includes doing trail sustainability assessments and engaging partners and communities. And we think this process can help us identify suitable GAOA projects and partners. Element D, cross-program integration. That's fairly natural. With increased workload associated with GAOA projects, we will have more opportunities to engage with our colleagues in planning and implementation. Element E, meet data standards. Turns out that good data helps with project identification and selection and reporting. Element H, expand use of service and Job Corps. Well, GAOA is an opportunity to engage those services. And then element F, support outdoor recreation economy. Good trails lead to better recreation opportunities. So the work we do on the ground will directly help our local economies. And then it's not actually a unit element, but we still think it's very important for GAOA is the partner element, invite shared partner leadership, which segues nicely to our next slide. How do partners and volunteers engage? We really want to transition from a transactional relationship with our partners to a shared leadership relationship. Engaging with partners and volunteers satisfies community needs and increases community participation and shared stewardship, thus increasing local capacity and our agency's relevancy. It is important that our partners and volunteers see themselves working side by side with the agency to steward trails in a way that addresses law, statute, and policy. Local partners likely need training and coaching, just like new employees, so that they can see how they can fit into our stewarding trails agenda. We also want to acknowledge that many units lack the capacity to support an influx of individual volunteers. So we will need to think about ways that partners can organize and provide some of that support themselves. So we've included several specific ideas in the guidebook, and I'm going to run through some of them right now. The idea is that this is not just about digging in the dirt. While swinging a Pulaski is fun, it is not the only thing that volunteers can do. We want to take advantage of people's skills and expertise. They can help do surveys for NEPA projects. If they have wildlife background or archaeological background, there are plenty of places that we can use those skills. We could also use a lot of help with coordination, data collection, education. I mean, most people are familiar with volunteers getting Sawyer certified, but it's also possible for them to get trained in trail bridge inspections. There are opportunities out there. So finding ways to engage partners is key, as they are sometimes the primary maintainers of our trail systems. There are places where we don't have the federal workforce doing it as much as the volunteers, particularly in adopt-a-trail situations. Slide. So more work that volunteers can be doing, they can be helping to find funding for contractors to do NEPA or grant writing. They can help with public education and facilitate bringing public concerns back to the local unit. Often our volunteers and partners have a better bead on what's happening in the local community than we're necessarily able to as an agency. So I guess the takeaway is to not look at trail managers as gatekeepers. A lot of our work can be done in a collaborative way with our partners and volunteers. All right, back to you, Brenda.
Great, thank you. So that's pretty much the end of our presentation. I did want to just point out the website where you can go to for all information that you would be looking for the 10-year Trail Challenge. There's the link right there on the slide, and we will be updating it as we get more tools and resources available. So we're continuing to gather lessons learned and success stories, and as was mentioned, we will have a tool available for assessing the sustainability of trails and workforce capacity. So please do check out that link. And with that, I just have a couple of comments before we close out our presentation here, where we talked about, why we have the challenge, what we're looking for from the challenge, how it's structured, how we really anticipate working together going forward. So just a couple things to keep in mind that, whether you call this the 10-year Trail Challenge or the hoopty-doopty dance, I don't know. It's basically what it is just solid, good program management, right? So this is not an initiative. This is not a check the box exercise. This is really about good program management. And so having a clear vision of where we're trying to go, right? Really focusing on the sustainability of trails and meeting community needs, working in close partnership with our partners and volunteers in our communities, that shared leadership model that Jess talked about. Being really intentional about those actions that will make the most difference, and really thinking about the most appropriate scale at which to invest our resources and our time and our energy. And so we're really excited about working with our partners, that national level partner coalition, where we will be looking at a really large scale of where can we find efficiencies and leverage resources and really provide some good tools that will benefit the trail program nationwide. And then also at the local scale, right, with partners at the local scale working with units. And really out of this, we'll have really solid institutional knowledge and a highly skilled workforce, both agency partners, volunteers. And really what we're going for is professionalizing the trail program. And so there's a lot to look forward to over the coming years. And I also want to say that back to the slide with the arrows and stuff of the current condition and kind of where we're heading, there is so much good work going on out there, so much innovation, really cool stuff happening out on the ground. And we want to be able to find those examples and share those so that others can learn from them, so that everybody isn't just struggling on their own.